Alright, hi everyone, and welcome to the launch video for 100xdevs Cohort 3.0. In this video, I'll talk through what is the syllabus for the next cohort, what all technologies are we learning, what is the schedule of the live classes, what the price will be, the detailed syllabus, the projects that we'll be building, all that jazz. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. So Cohort 3.0 will have two parallel set of classes running. Every Saturday and Sunday, 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. IST, we'll be learning about web development and DevOps. Every Friday, same time, we'll be going through the Web3 blockchains, Rust Solidity, Smart Contract Bootcamp. Both of these will be running parallelly. You can pick and choose which one is more relevant for you. You have the option of buying this independently or this independently. You can also buy both of these in a bundle. Before we get into Cohort 3.0, let's quickly go through what all we discussed in Cohort 2. This is the detailed syllabus. At a high level, we discussed DevOps, full stack, bunch of projects, open source, system design. This was the high level of Cohort 2.0. It ran for 8 months, started December of last year, is going to end in July 2024. This actually has more than enough knowledge for you to get started on DevOps and full stack. In Cohort 3, on the web development side, we'll start again from scratch and cover everything in Cohort 2. And I've added some extra set of topics. These are things that I've learned in the past few months. 100xdevs cohorts are always the information dump of all the things that I'm learning. Cohort 2 had everything I learned until last year, and this year I've learned a few extra things, so I've added them to Cohort 3.0. These include a bunch of DevOps topics like infrastructure as code, GitOps, Argo CD, and the set of projects that we're doing, of course, are different from the last cohort. A few things that might happen, there are no promises here, but might happen would be Golang as well as React Native. These will be for free if they are added. The reason for Golang is because most DevOps projects are written in Golang. So if you want to contribute to them, you need to know Golang well. And React Native is just the next succession to after you've learned web development. It's the next thing you should do. Both of these might be added for free. These are the extra things from Cohort 2 that we will definitely be covering. Web3 will be divided into 4 parts. Some very basic foundational stuff in Web3, some client-side logic. Then we'll move on to Ethereum Advanced, Solana Advanced, and build a bunch of projects and Web2 plus Web3 use cases. First up, let's go through the syllabus of Web Dev and DevOps. For web development, these are the set of topics we'll be learning. Now feel free to pause the video and look at the exact topics. Let me take you through them from a high level. We'll spend some time going through the foundations, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, set up your terminal, very basic stuff. Then we'll understand how frontends were made a few years ago. Then we'll understand a bunch of backend runtimes in JavaScript, Node.js, Bun, Cloudflare runtimes, and how you can start to use JavaScript on the backend. We'll build some HTTP servers, understand what the HTTP protocol is, NoSQL databases, SQL databases, and ORMs. Where can you store your data in a full stack application? React as our very first front-end framework. All of this will have this as a prerequisite. This is how you build frontends before. This is how you try to build frontends today. Then we'll style our React applications, move on to TypeScript. Until this point, we'll learn everything in JavaScript. At this point, we'll convert everything from JavaScript to TypeScript. We'll spend some time on Next.js. We'll cover all of these topics and maybe some more. Next.js syllabus keeps changing every cohort because they move very fast. But at the very least, we'll be covering these topics. We'll spend some time on monorepos, then turbo repos, and how can you lint your application. Maybe we'll also do a bunch of CI/CD stuff here. We'll spend some time on WebSockets and real-time communication. That generally includes, real-time applications like chat apps, whiteboard apps, things like these. Maybe another thing that's being added in this cohort is SFUs and media soup. We'll understand better architectures for WebRTC and how can you create and deploy a Google Meet-like application. We'll spend some time in testing, and lastly, advanced backends. If you want to build, real-world company projects that have multiple backends, how do they talk to each other? How can you scale your backend applications? This is the web dev syllabus. Let's quickly look at the DevOps syllabus as well. We'll first spend some time on bash scripting, some advanced Linux terminal commands, and how can you interact with your machine. Then we'll spend some time on VMs, how can you create them, deploy them on a bunch of cloud providers. It might be good for you to have an AWS account, debit card, credit card here. All DevOps topics, if you can test yourself on your own AWS account, it's much more preferred and advisable. So if you can get a debit card or a credit card, create an AWS account. You don't have to pay anything, but put your card there so you have a verified AWS account before the DevOps part begins. Auto-scaling groups and managed instance groups. How can you scale your applications both in AWS and GCP if you don't have a containerized application yet? Then we'll understand how can you containerize your application. Then we'll understand how can you deploy your containerized application in an auto-scaled fashion slightly easily. After we have done the easy bits, then we'll understand how can you deploy your containerized application to a Kubernetes cluster, which is the right way to do it, but also you have to understand a lot of things to be able to deploy a full stack application there. Next up, we'll understand infrastructure as code. We'll do basic AWS CLIs, and then we'll spend some time on Terraform, understand how can you use Terraform to deploy your apps. Then we'll move on to monitoring, primarily the Grafana and Prometheus stack, but we might spend some time on paid services like Datadog, New Relic. Package managers, how can you use Helm to install a bunch of packages in your Kubernetes cluster? We might also explore some other simpler package managers like Glasscube. CI/CD in GitHub, basically we've learned a bunch of things until this point. How can you use CI/CD to, let's say, deploy a non-containerized application to a VM, a non-containerized application to an autoscaling group, a containerized application to ECS, a containerized application to Kubernetes through your GitHub repository directly using CI/CD. That's what we'll be doing here. It'll basically be a very nice summary of everything we've done until this point. Again, this is the simple stuff. Then we'll move on to something more advanced, slightly better, which is GitOps. We will provision our infrastructure through GitOps. We will deploy our application using GitOps. Lastly, just an extra topic I added, CDNs and object stores. How can you store files, images, videos in a cloud environment? Next up, we'll spend some time on projects. This is what I'm thinking right now. It might change a little bit. The goal of most projects remains to learn something very specific. For example, pure to-do front-end application is just to get beginners off the ground. Gmail clone is just to understand how can you create a pixel perfect front-end. We might also pick some other production website, doesn't really matter. XLA draw, chat application, real-time games, all of these for how can you do real-time communication, building code forces or lead code for some full stack stuff. Lastly, we'll do some DevOps project. We'll either be building Replit or something similar to AWS Lambda or serverless provider. Both of these have very similar problems to solve, so we'll pick and choose which one to do. But when I say we'll be building a serverless provider, I won't mean we'll be renting out data centers. We'll just get a bunch of compute and build a serverless provider on top. Something like AWS Lambda or Cloudflare workers. There are also very nice blog posts on how they're done inside AWS and Cloudflare. Feel free to read them. I'll link them in the description. Building an alerts manager, very similar to Better Uptime. And lastly, a distributed image resizer. If someone comes to your website and uploads a 1080p photo, how can you convert it into various sizes and store it on your object store? If you know this logic, you can very easily apply it to create, let's say, a distributed video transcoder. These will be the set of projects in full stack. Isn't that too much to cover in 6 to 7 months? Yes, maybe. I don't know. A lot of people are able to cover it. A lot of people aren't. One thing I'll advise here is when you're learning something new, it's very easy to get stuck in this trap. You learn it a little bit and then drop off and then you have to start from scratch. It's very easy to forget a new technology unless you reach terminal velocity. At some point, your learning will eject out of tutorial hell. And when that happens, you don't have to go through this rut of starting from scratch again and, understanding it a little bit and then dropping off. Either way, the course expiry is 3 years. So if you think you're going to be a little slow and don't want to follow along in live classes, you have the cohort for 3 years. Generally advisable to move along with the live classes, maybe like a few weeks ahead, a few weeks behind, but try to stick to it for 6 to 7 months. A lot of people were beginners and have been able to do it. So it is definitely possible, but pick and choose, you have 3 years. Should I buy the last cohort or the new one is the question now. If you want to do just web development and DevOps, that was the only thing covered in the second cohort. The same thing is being covered in the third cohort. Now here it depends on what kind of person you are. If you like live classes, then you'll have to go for this one because here we'll be covering everything live. Here you have all the recordings. But if you have an interview in 3 months, probably makes sense for you to buy this, go through the recordings really quickly. So pick and choose what is more relevant for you. It really depends. Cohort 2 ends July. So if you buy it right now, you also have a few live classes to go. Cohort 3 starts August. If you have 6 months, if you're a complete beginner, you need some warm-up time and then want to go through the cohort live, need TS support throughout for the next 7 to 8 months, then probably makes sense for you to get cohort 3.0. Cool. This covers web development. This is an independent cohort that you can buy. The second parallel cohort that we're running is Web3. Let's quickly go through the syllabus of Web3 as well. Web3 will be divided into 4 parts. Basic foundations of Web3. What is a blockchain decentralization? How can you create client-side applications on Ethereum as well as Solana? What are client-side applications? Applications where you don't have to write smart contracts, or you use smart contracts as black boxes. We'll understand from the top, but not understand Solidity or Rust over here. We'll simply deploy other people's smart contracts, create front ends on top of them. What are these projects we'll build here? We'll understand, how to create a client-side wallet, very similar to thenearwallet.com if you've seen it. A cloud wallet, very simple use case. And lastly, something like BonkBot, a WhatsApp or a Telegram bot where you can message to do transactions or, buy meme coins. This will be the first 1.5 months. Then we'll understand some advanced Ethereum and advanced Solana. In advanced Ethereum, we'll first go through Solidity, the syntax, what is a contract, how can you write your own contracts. Then we'll do some local development using Foundry. How can you create smart contracts locally? How can you deploy them locally? How can you even start a blockchain locally? We'll go through a bunch of available smart contracts. We'll write some of them ourselves. We'll extend a bunch of smart contracts. The thing about smart contracts is every use case that you can think of, someone has written a smart contract for it, and it's probably audited as well. Most smart contracts are open source. So we'll be spending a bunch of times understanding these contracts. We'll also try to write some of these contracts ourselves. What are these contracts? How can you create a token? How can you create an NFT? A decentralized exchange contract, staking your NFTs or your token in lieu of a different token. and going through some commonly used Open Zeppelin contracts. We'll also create front ends for some of these in React. One thing I forgot to mention is for Web3, basic JavaScript, Node.js and React is a prerequisite. So make sure you understand very basics of React, go through a simple video. Node.js and React is a prerequisite. Solana Advanced, same things, but on the Sol side, which means we'll first understand Rust basics and advanced. This will be the most difficult bit of the cohort. Rust is a hard language. Even for me, it's been very hard to learn. I've only been learning it for a year and a half. It's highly verbose. So this is where I expect most of the drop off. You don't have to understand everything in Rust, but you need to understand it enough to be able to write smart contracts, which if I'm being honest, you have to pretty much understand at least, 70-80% of Rust. Then we'll go through some programs on Solana, some available programs, understanding them, and then of course, writing some of our own programs on Solana. Lastly, some Web 2 plus Web 3 use cases and projects. This is the exciting bit. Even if you did not understand, most probably Rust, this is where you'll get stuck. This part doesn't really need this. Here we'll understand how do you build an exchange, for example, how do you build a gambling website, how do you create a crypto payment gateway. All of these require, some very basic Web 2 plus Web 3 things. Things like storing your private key on a server or indexing the blockchain, sweeping a bunch of wallets. So what is this? Why do you need this? And why does all of this become important? For all of these Web 2 plus Web 3 use cases. What are these Web 2 plus Web 3 use cases or projects we'll be building? A crypto payment gateway very similar to CoinGate, and a centralized exchange, or a crypto gambling website, most probably a gambling website. Both of these are very similar. Both of these require deposits and withdrawals. The only thing that's different is here you have to create an order book, here you have to create a sports book. And if you're building a gambling website, you have to create a bunch of front ends. Everything else is fairly similar. So we'll pick one of these and build that. That will be the syllabus for the Web3 cohort. And these are the combined set of projects, contracts, everything. If you buy both the Web3 as well as the web development cohort, feel free to pause and look at them. Harkirat, where are open source projects? I agree. Where are they? These are a lot of projects we will be creating, and some of them will be tutorial hellish. You will just, follow along in a video. This section is the most actionable bit of any cohort. The biggest outcomes that have come for people who spend their time here rather than spending it on, following a video. What can you do here? Not for a beginner. Eventually, in a few months, we'll be exploring a bunch of GSOC organizations, setting up their, code bases locally, understanding how can you fix an issue here. Some full stack projects also, some companies who have written some code, and Solidity and Ethereum contracts. These are the things we'll be doing on open source contracts or projects, trying to understand them, contributing mildly, and, not spamming any of the orgs. What we'll be creating. These are things that we, build now in every cohort. In the last cohort, we built 5 open source projects. They are usually bootstrapped by me, by which I mean I write the first set of code, then we create a bunch of issues that people solve, and people get bounties for it. The last cohort, we distributed $12,000, something like that, in bounties. This cohort, the idea remains the same. These are the 5 projects that I currently think we'll be building. The biggest ones I know we'll be building would be a crypto gambling website, probably a crypto gateway as well. Automatic bounty dispensing from GitHub. Yeah, these are the 3 that we'll definitely be building. We'll probably be building lead code and Replit as well. These are all in-house projects. Here you can contribute aggressively. Of course, don't spam here either. But the best outcomes, the best people, if you look at this pyramid, these are the set of people who join the cohort. These are the people who are following videos along and, still stuck in tutorial hell. These are the people who are able to eject out of tutorial hell. A lot of people just do that and, move on. You don't need the cohort till eternity. You need it enough so that you can eventually start to figure things out yourself, open projects and solve issues there. This shouldn't ideally be, let's keep following along, and at the end of 6 months, we're sitting like this. Okay, these are the 5 projects I built. Let me put them on my resume and move on. Try to eject out of tutorial hell as soon as possible. How will that happen? Start to open code bases. Harkirat, code bases are very big. Yes, that is why we have these projects. Look at these projects. They're decent. Whatever we're learning is what we're applying. So of course, nothing is being handheld, but you can figure this out by GPTing a bit or, getting a friend who's already solved it. You can find the list of all the open source contributors here. Try to ping them. They're usually very helpful. For the last cohort, for example, these are the people that are, have been the top contributors. If you look at one of our repositories, Singh doesn't live in India. He came to the Bangalore meetup, but if he did live in India, he would have come to Delhi as well. Sargam, the person we referred, he also came to the Delhi meetup. Nimit number 3 also came to the Delhi meetup. This person you see here, Sujit, also was referred to an influencer and currently is working there, also works with us. This is Abhishek, most probably from cohort 1, who also got referred, things like these. The best thing you can do is, reach here. Most people that have reached here have some sort of a decent outcome. There, I'm not saying everyone's having 100K jobs, but people are doing well. And not like I'm helping them do well. Some of them I am, some of them I'm able to refer. Some of them, they just figure things out themselves. That's where you should aim to be. So I want most people to try this, which is why I wanted to put this out. I still think most people will either be stuck here or here. But if you can, even if you're a beginner, try to reach the top of the pyramid. That's where the best outcomes happen. Cool. These are the prices for the 3 cohorts. If you want to join just the web development cohort, that includes the syllabus that's very similar to cohort 2 plus some extra things. It's for 4,999 rupees. Live classes start 2nd of August, Saturday and Sunday 7 to 9 p.m. IST. If you want just the Web3 cohort, want to understand Web3, Rust, Solana programming, these will be the best things you'll learn from here. 4,999 classes start 2nd of August, Friday 7 to 9 p.m. IST. Bunch of offline recorded videos on both the sides. If you want both of them, then the combined price is 6,499. There is an early bird discount on top of these prices if you use the coupon code earlybird for the first 500 folks or so. So pick and choose which one is relevant for you. High level, if you're a complete beginner, probably don't go for both, go just for web development. More opportunities here, maybe not highly outsized opportunities, but more opportunities here, more arrows to throw if you're applying. But if you're ambitious, Web3 sort of opens another vector for you. And a lot of times you don't need too much Web3. I'm not trying to oversell here. It just happens. There isn't a lot of talent in Web3. So, good full stack engineers who have high level Web3 knowledge. The same thing happened for me. I did not have too much Web3 knowledge. More specifically, I did not know Rust at all or had written programs in Solana before I got into a bunch of Solana companies. I was good at full stack. I was great at full stack with some inclination towards Web3 is how I got my first 2 offers in Web3. So after the early bird discount, there isn't too much difference in the prices if you get both of them. But of course, don't get overwhelmed either. If you're a complete beginner, probably this is the best bang for the buck. After this, I'll take you through a bunch of FAQs and a website which has all the details for cohort 2 as well as cohort 3. FAQs, let's do them really quickly. When does the course start? 2nd of August. Will there be a Discord group? Yes. On 20th of July, you'll find a link to Discord in the course dashboard. Will I get recordings if I miss a video? Yes. Should be fairly obvious, right? Prerequisites for web development. Good to have HTML, CSS and JavaScript. I'll also be sharing some warm-up videos. Web3, JavaScript and basic React is a prerequisite. How long? 6 months is the guess. Probably will be more, but the current guess or hope is we finish this by 6 months. Assignments, slides, notes will all be provided. I'll take you through some of them from cohort 2. Super comprehensive if you're an assignments guy, and slides generally help in structure. Slow recorded videos for new concepts will be added. There won't be just live videos. That's true for cohort 2 as well. We keep adding a bunch of offline videos. If people don't like the live class, if it becomes really fast, or if there is some extra topic that needs to be added. Polls throughout about the pace, syllabus, very feedback driven, two-way communication is open. I'm mostly available if you tag me very aggressively. But generally, the syllabus keeps on changing a little bit based on what people want. And lastly, refund policy, 7 days, no questions asked. No questions asked means literally no questions asked. Just send an email. You'll get a refund in 3 to 4 days. 100xdevs.refunds@gmail.com. This is the email you need to send it to. Alrighty. More set of FAQs. Will this get me a remote job? No. Will this get you into GSOC? No. These are like bad expectations to keep. A lot of people do reach these places, but these are bad expectations to have when you're buying a cohort, and generally a good idea to not, get into a cohort with these expectations. These can be outcomes that might or might not happen based on you and only you. So this really depends on you, if I'm being honest. What if I'm not from tech? Probably not for you unless you're super motivated. If you've not done DSA, BTech, whatever, BSc, if you're from like some medical background or CA, pick and choose. This cohort is aggressive. There is a lot of syllabus to cover. The goal is to make you the best in these stacks. That means a lot of times you need to be super motivated yourself. Make sure that is the case. Will TA or teaching assistants, which we will have a bunch of TAs. I forgot to introduce that, but like on your Discord group, you will have 2 TAs per subgroup. They'll help you out with all questions textually. Please don't DM them. I tell them not to reply. They do. A lot of times they go on calls as well, but that's not the expectation from them. Textual questions, textual answers on a group so everyone can benefit from it. Will the TA give me the right answer? Always. A lot of times they will guide you. Okay, please Google this and listen to them. Don't ask questions. Don't worry too much about Harkirat. Why is he not helping me directly? It's for your own learning. You will not have a TA forever. At some point, if he's telling you to Google something, Google it and try to arrive at the answer yourself. Will there be bounties on the next one? Yes. And there will be dedicated reviewers as well. I get busy from time to time, which is why there will be dedicated reviewers. They will be reviewing the code. I will be assigning the final bounty, but a lot of your code will be reviewed by other people. I'll try my best to, if I have time, of course, do it as well. Initially, usually I do it, but eventually if I do get busy, then we'll be having people so that your PRs don't remain open forever. Is there a limit to the bounty amount? We're limiting it to 1 lakh a person. If you've made that much, then just become a reviewer and help other people out. How many TAs? 2 per subgroup. Class schedule 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. IST. Cool. All these details are present on blog.100xdevs.com. Let me quickly take you through the structure, but spend some time here, breathe a bit, and then decide whether or not you want to join. Do not FOMO in. We have 7-day refunds. So if you do FOMO in, you will FOMO out as quickly. It'll just be operational head on both the sides. Breathe look at the syllabus, ask other people, look at the reviews, and then decide. blog.100xdevs.com. Let me take you through it really quickly. All right, if you go to blog.100xdevs.com, you'll find the detailed syllabus, the same thing I took you through. For example, web development. It's very well structured into easy, medium, and hard. You have all the topics here. Again, don't FOMO in. You have everything here. Pick and choose aram se. If not, then you have everything. Read it from thousands of resources. Projects, these are the projects that we'll be building. Testimonials, there are a bunch of these. Just go to my Twitter, you'll find them. But cohort 1, cohort 2, a bunch of testimonials, what people do, work on, GSOC, all that jazz. Warm-up videos. If you do buy, you have a month or whatever, 20 days. Spend some time here. Put up a bunch of videos that you can look at, full stack, DevOps, and Web3, and a bunch of open source projects that you can look at as well. Of course, you might not understand them on day 0, but you can look at them. For example, the code for app.100xdevs.com is open. Projects.100xdevs.com is open. Projects.100xdevs.com is where we post all of our slides. For example, if I open TypeScript over here, it has all the slides for the TypeScript class that we did. Similarly, app.100xdevs.com is one of our dashboards where you can look at the videos. We also have a secondary dashboard. So if this is ever down, video is not working, go to the secondary dashboard. Here you find your cohort and all the auxiliary free courses that we add. For example, in cohort 2, we added machine learning, we added Android. So you can go here and look at machine learning videos, Android videos, data structures and algorithms. Key live classes keep on happening. For cohort 2 folks, most probably the same thing will happen for cohort 3 folks as well. So code for this is also available on GitHub. Feel free to look here. This is the repositories, set of repositories that I was showing, where top contributors come from. If you go to insights and contributors, you can see Singh, Sargam, Nimit, Tanmay are all the people, biggest contributors. These are the projects that you'll be contributing to as well eventually. Lastly, we do a bunch of meetups. So, feel free to find pictures here and, what all happens. These are usually open for everyone. So don't feel pressure to, buy the cohort for this. People just sneak in. You don't have to be from the cohort. People come from, non-cohort backgrounds as well. Where can you buy? Go to harkirat.classics.co.in. You will find 3, new bootcamps here that are going to start from 2nd of August. This one gives you access to both blockchain and Web3, 6499. Plus, try to apply early bird. You might get something extra. 4999 for web development. This is a successor to the last one, the last web development cohort. This is the new one. 2nd of August it starts. Web3 cohort, if you just want Web3, full stack really well, then Web3 cohort is for you. If you want to buy the last cohort, if you want recorded videos really quickly, and you're okay with having no TA support for the next, you'll only have it for 2 more months if you join the last cohort. But if that's the case, then you can buy the last cohort over here. Live 0 to 100 complete is where you can get access to the last cohort. If you use the coupon code last chance over here, this price will also probably go down if you want recorded videos. That's all I had for this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.